Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the workshop. It is phenomenal to have you here, as ever, because on today's video, we are going to be making a project for John Saunders of NYC CNC, a CNC machining YouTube channel and company, host of a great podcast, The Business of Machining. It is going to be very exciting because the project they're working on, thrilled to have the opportunity for us to do something for that project. Before we jump in, we're going to thank today's sponsor, which is Trade Coffee. Of course, if you go to my link in the description, you're going to be getting a great deal. In the coffee machine today is Necessary Coffee's Columbia Blend. Check them out at the end of the video. Thank you, Trade, for sponsoring this episode. Now, I currently have the bubonic plague. I'm quite sure. I'm just ill as anything. Not feeling great. Nobody's feeling great. Everybody's feeling ill.
That's ridiculous. It's not the bubonic plague. It's tuberculosis.
Thank you, Will. See, everybody has it. We're struggling. Now, this morning has started with a whole lot of businessy things, officey things. We have some awesome new t-shirt designs, hat designs, all that fun stuff that Cyrus is working on.
Good stuff.
What is that? He's been making up some beautiful graphic design for us. The last thing I do before I fire up the forge, actually, I think I could fire up the forge straight away and then do this, is I'm going to hit publish on an episode. I'm gonna get this forge lit. I still got eyebrows. I'm gonna open up the door so we don't have any carbon monoxide build up and kill us all. Now I'm gonna publish that video. In case you didn't know, we're still having our videos edited by the phenomenal Jamie Popple, which means that our review process all has to get done remotely because he's still back in the good old Great Britain. So the tool that we use for this is Vimeo. We go back and forth as we finalize a video. As you can see, this is version 3 of Cane Sword, and we go from Vimeo to YouTube, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. So that video is now gonna end up on YouTube where I can add a thumbnail and get it published for you wonderful folks. While that forge heats up though, let's tell you a little bit about this project with NYC CNC. So this project started almost a year ago, and they are building a full-scale replica of Johnny Five from the movie Short Circuit. I'd never heard about this film until finding out about these guys making this replica. I watched Short Circuit 1 and Short Circuit 2, and they are phenomenal. It's about a robot that comes to life and becomes a sentient being, a self-aware being. And what we're gonna do is we are going to make Johnny Five a beautiful Damascus blade. Forge is hot. We're gonna stack up some steel and forge that beautiful robot a beautiful knife. Here are our specifications, our max bounding box. Check out this beast of a vise that Will got himself. This is a monster! But it's on the welding table. So, we gotta get it off. Oh, golly, that is heavy! Gonna get the Anyang warming up. Let's weld it! Woo! Input. Still need input. Mr. Johnny Five is getting a new knife. Alrighty, Johnny Five's knife is cooling down. We just took delivery of some more stuff. Check out this. Got a bunch of new arrivals. We've got variable frequency drive. Big old stack of motors. We're now weighing them because there's a very important weight limit for shipping stuff, and that is 50 pounds. You start going over 50 pounds, it starts becoming way more complex and way more expensive to ship things. Here are our VFDs, minus the forward and reverse switch that we've got to put on them. And even with the 2-horse motor, which is in this box, that and the 2-horse motors, 43.8 pounds. Which means with some wiring and some packaging, we'll be just about at like 48, 49 pounds, which means it's good to ship, practical to ship, which is great.
Okay, so we got the billet cooling down. We're gonna go into the grinding room, grind off all that nasty forge scale, and then restack it.
I had to run some errands for a few hours, so thank you, Will, for taking over. I'm gonna weld up this pattern like this and stick her in the fire, forge weld it together. We're gonna grind off some of this excess. That just simply takes off some of the excess MIG weld mass that we'd otherwise have to grind off once it was a part of the whole billet. There we go! Squishy, squishy! To let this have a nice slow cool down. We can let that steel mellow out like a cool surfer. It's a new morning, and on a typical morning here in the workshop, yeah, we make our coffee on this little coffee maker.
Nothing like a little hot bean juice to wake you up in the morning.
Oh yes. Now, Will and I have been working here in the office for the last few hours. We've been making some good progress. We've been going through everything from, boxes that it is that we need to order. You put in an order for some boxes, you made a shopping cart on some boxes.
Yes.
We're just coming through here because we wanted to look at the grinders and just make sure that we're getting everything dialed down pat. Today is Monday morning, it's a brand new week at the end of last week, Friday, when you last saw us. Finish it off with a lot of good businessy stuff. This piece is getting ready to go into the mill. But what I would like to do is I would like to go back in time until before we even did that switch around on the shop back there. And I want to show you some little experimentation I did one Sunday afternoon. I wanted to learn about seams and what they meant for the strength of fabric construction. Of course, you'll remember we're starting to dip our toes a little bit into the garment stuff. There's a little bit of a prototyping space next door there. And so this is me experimenting. And so here are the different stitches that I want to test. All sorts of different variations, from the number of lines of stitch to how many stitches per inch there are, from a few stitches per inch to a whole boatload of stitches per inch, to the difference between a straight stitch and serging the edges like this machine here does, to encapsulate in the edge of the fabric, to serging and folding back open, to serging, folding back open, and stitching over the top. It's gonna go a little like this. We're gonna cut some fabric, we're gonna make it into a loop, we're gonna stitch the seam, and we're then going to start putting weights on the bar and see where it breaks. A little bit of time has passed since the last segment, and it's given me a moment to think about the way I'm doing this. I also did a test off camera, and what it's taught me is I actually need to make myself a hanging system that's going to be a whole lot better than just simply using a bar and throwing some weights either side of the bar. So we're going to run across back into the metal shop, and we are going to do some welding. The fabric tore. The stitch is fine, the fabric ripped. So all sorts of interesting stuff has happened. A single stitch broke at 52.5 pounds. Got an incredible result with a double stitch breaking at a whopping 170 pounds in the fabric itself. Our first triple stitch broke at 85 pounds. I did it again since it seemed so strange, and we got the fabric to break at 145 pounds. Stitches per inch, or the amount of stitches inside an inch of length, was a very interesting one to do, because we actually got the strongest performance out of a tight, very fine, high stitch per inch count compared to the low stitch per inch count, which pulled out at 57.5 pounds. Serging or overlocking the edges of the fabric helped a good amount to get us strength, and serging alone got us a good 100 pounds of strength, whereas we get 135 pounds of strength by serging and then lapping them together, but even better, when we serged, folded, and stitched over the top, we've got 160 pounds. There are a whole lot of downsides to this experiment because we have a very, very limited test sample, and there are so many incredibly huge variables that, of course, all these numbers really give me is just an indication, a very, very slight little indication as to how some of these stitches perform compared to others. Something that just crossed my mind is how mind-blowingly strong a seam is. You know, it's all well and good, you know, putting all the weight on it and making the thing break, but just think of this in your head. With a double stitch, just like this, it can hold 170 pounds. Our max single stitch, single row of stitch, was holding 120 to 130 pounds of weight per inch and a quarter. That's a lot of weight for a very small amount of stitch. And again, in the case of our top performer, that double stitch, it was the fabric that gave way first. The stitch is stronger than the fabric. That's pretty cool. That was a long time ago, but I learnt a lot. It was a ton of fun. We're still making progress behind the scenes on the garment stuff, so stay tuned. Thank you all so much for watching us get this far on the Johnny 5 knife. We're gonna be taking it even further in the next episode. Be sure to also subscribe to NYC CNC, to John Saunders' channel, so you can see them make the Johnny 5 replica.